Morning, everyone. It's my pleasure. My name is Paul Luna. I'm the President and CEO of Helios Education Foundation. It's my honor to officially welcome everybody here this morning to our AI in Education convening in partnership with the Arizona Institute for Education and the Economy. The key today is the purpose of why we're here, which is to really explore, I think, what AI and technology in general means to education. How does it help us improve education outcomes, especially for students, which is really the primary focus of Helios Education Foundation. Our goal is that every student in Arizona and Florida will be successful in post-secondary education. And we know the only way we can do that is if we meaningfully engage students in a manner that helps them to be on a track to be successful in education throughout their life, that will establish a foundation from which they can then achieve anything and everything they want to be. And we know so much about how we might improve education comes through technology and enhancements and being innovative, and AI is clearly a big piece of that. And I'm sure, I know like us at Helios, we're all kind of grasping for, well, what does AI really mean for us, for our organizations, for our businesses, our business practices, but also what does it mean for education? What does it mean for teaching and learning? What does it mean in how we introduce something like this that's so revolutionary, but how do we make sure that we embrace it in a manner that continues to support our students to achieve in the manner that we want? And how do we make sure that the technology doesn't become another creator of equity gaps within our education systems, right? Because so often at times when there's enhancements or other technologies have been introduced, you have winners and losers in terms of who gets access to that technology. And I think for us, our commitment has always been, we want every student in all of our educational systems and all of our educational environments to be successful. And this might be one of those tools that we can utilize in a manner without creating any of those equity gaps. We're excited to have all of you here today. It is intended to be an environment where we all learn a little bit, we all share a little bit, we all probably have different understandings and perspectives. We have great leaders who are going to walk us through the agenda today. We're going to hear from many voices. And so I want to make sure that I formally thank Chad and his team at the Arizona Institute for Education and the Economy, and Leanne Lindsay, who I always refer to as the AI guru in Arizona and technology and education in general. So the two of them and their team working with the Helios team. I want to also acknowledge the Helios team. Please, Helios team, please raise your hand. Thank you. Thank you for acknowledging the vote. They have worked really hard on this day to make it meaningful and valuable for all of us, right? And I think the way we can honor their efforts in creating today is to fully engage, right? To bring your perspective, bring your ideas, bring your questions, make this interactive, because then our ability to learn together, to be on this AI journey together is something that I'm hopeful we can embrace and we can support each other. I'm particularly excited, and I want to thank the speakers, all of the individuals, and I think we've got them kind of lined up here in the front. We're going to be hearing from many school-based voices today. And I just want to thank you for being willing to share your early learnings, your stories, because sometimes that's vulnerable to share what you've been doing. You're on the leading edge on what many of us are trying to understand. And so I want to thank you in advance for being a part, a really critical part of this discussion today, where we can all learn from what you're already doing, and then we can begin to apply that together. I think our goal at the end is that we all leave with a little better understanding of AI in general, what it means to us and our own individual organizations, but also what it means to the work that we do together. And how can we, with the better and common understanding, try to find solutions, embrace things that are working, find best practices, share those with others. Make this really a catalyst for more improving of education overall, kind of reimagining what success can look like for all of our students. And at the end of the day, that's what I think we stay grounded in. We're here to be able to improve the student outcomes for all Arizona students, wherever they might be, including my hometown of Miami, Arizona, where the superintendent is here. So the mighty Vandals are in the house. I can't not acknowledge that. And we're happy to be here to share those stories. So we're going to hear from many voices, many perspectives. hopefully all of yours as well. So without further ado, let me please introduce kind of a person that really needs no introduction in education. So Chad Gueston, former superintendent of Phoenix Union High School, and the leader of the Arizona Institute for Education and the Economy, Chad Gueston.
Thank you, Paul, and to the Helios team, as well as to the Institute team for setting today up. And as Paul said, just want to thank you all for being here today. It's right and important that you're here today. I'm going to talk about that, the role of nonprofit and government and philanthropy as we think about the future of schools. So thank you. And then to our speakers, as you will see, you already see on your agenda, we have 5, I think, counties, 4 or 5 counties represented. You're going to hear from districts, charters, private schools. So you're going to get a really good representation of current state of AI, so we're really excited. I just want to spend a couple of minutes before I turn it over to Dr. Leanne Lindsay on our team, just setting a bigger picture stage for today and why this is important. You all know what I'm about to say is very true, but the world has changed and is changing really quickly. And what that means for work and workforce and society and humanity. As the world changes quickly and rapidly and dramatically, so must education. And it's critically important that what happens inside of schools matches and is preparing students for what's happening outside of schools. And artificial intelligence plays a really, really big role in that. The level of transformation that's needed is going to take all of us. This is not a K-12 problem and a K-12 solution. It's why we today invite government, philanthropy, and nonprofit to with us think about the impact of AI and what it means for education today and what it means for our students. As I've shared with people, we have to live in a time where we're not pointing fingers at K-12, but looking in a mirror and in a very empowered way, saying, what is my role as an organization, as an individual, in helping Arizona think about where the future of education and the future of school needs to go. And as you'll hear in a second from Leanne, you'll see a slide at some point today from her. We say this is not a time to take a flight or fight perspective on AI. There's a lot of people that are like, I'm going to fight it, I don't want it. There's a lot of people that just want to run away from it. And you'll see quickly a frame that we use when I was in school leadership and would teach school safety, especially around crisis response. We would talk about fight, flight, freeze, or flock. And if you think about when the school safety, if there's an issue, you either fight it, you run away from it, you freeze, or you go do whatever, you flock, what everybody else is doing, right? Everybody's running, you're running. If you're screaming, you're screaming. If you're pulling out your camera, you're pulling out your camera. And in AI, that's also really true. There are people that are fighting it, people that are running, literally running away from the profession, people that are stuck and don't know what to do, people that are chasing every trend imaginable, flocking with everyone. And what we need to do as a broader educational ecosystem is a 5th F, which is forge the future and build the future together. That'll be critically important. What I do want to say is that we're really excited about the positioning of Arizona. That there are many organizations, why you're here today. There are many nonprofits, many local and statewide philanthropies, a lot of government leaders. We have a lot of representation from Department of Education here today, from Michelle Udall and the cabinet to many directors, that we believe Arizona is poised to actually not only weather this storm, but fast forward 5 to 10 years, be positioned to be one of the most forward-thinking educational systems that actually prepares students for their future. It's why you will continue to hear the Institute talk about the State 48 graduate profile. We have to make sure that Arizona's educational system doesn't exist for the sake of education, but exists, just like Paul said, for the sake of ensuring that every single child in Arizona, all 1.5 million, are prepared for their future. And finally, as I think about today, what you'll also constantly hear us say when it comes to artificial intelligence, which is we should not do AI for the sake of doing AI. We should think about artificial intelligence because of the impact that it can and will and does have on education today. But I also think more importantly, it's about the future of our children. We can't get excited about tools or get scared about AI because of what it might do for education. We have to say the children that we and the young adults that we are educating today are going to go in a world that is highly digital, that will be accelerated and automated in ways in which it's not today. And so it will be critically important that we together think about building a future of school that is relevant for our children and their future. And finally, I'll turn over to Dr. Lindsay. I just want to reemphasize one thing, which is, I'm going to turn over to our guest speaker, actually. Emphasize that it truly will take all of us. And I think more than just K-12, it's why we're convened today, government, philanthropy, and nonprofit, understanding where artificial intelligence is today and where it's going will be critically important. And so that's why today we are bringing to you, you're going to hear from students, you're going to hear from teachers, you're going to hear from site leaders, you're going to hear from ed tech specialists, you're going to hear from superintendents. People have literally, Robbie drove all the way from Holbrook. We have people that drove multiple hours just to be here, and then we end the day live streaming in from a teacher's classroom. You're actually going to get to see what a classroom looks like and feels like today. And speaking of a teacher, it is my honor to introduce our opening educator keynote speaker. All the bios you have with you, so we've decided to be very brief with introductions so that we can get to content. Please, Jennifer, make your way up. This is Jennifer Montoya, a 6th grade teacher who is going to open us off officially talking about what AI means for her in her incredible world as an educator. Thank you so much for being an educator today. Give her a round of applause.
Good morning. It is an honor and a pleasure to share my AI story with you. My first true encounter with AI was at Project Community. I knew that my students needed something more. They deserved better. I knew that they needed to be prepared for the real world. I knew that was going to take me changing my ways of teaching. I wanted to introduce more project-based learning to my classroom. The first step to that, I signed up to Project Community. I thought that was just going to be the gateway to introducing project-based learning to my classroom, but it introduced me to AI. A lot of the people that attended with me were talking about ChatGPT. I had no clue what that was. I sat there, what is that? What is it used for, and how do I get that? So it made me realize I was behind in technology, and if I'm behind in technology, then my students are behind in technology. What really hit a note with me, that these teachers were from schools like mine, in a rural area, Title I schools. I sat there and thought, if they can do it, why can't I? Why am I not doing this? I began experimenting with ChatGPT and other AI platforms. My next step of my journey was the invitation to participate in Raise AI Collaborative. I was a little skeptical along with my colleagues. We thought this was going to be another project or conference where we were simply going to get information and hope for the best in using it in our classroom. We had no idea what this was going to do for us or for our students or for our district. This is the project that transformed my teaching career. As you can see in the picture, we are smiling. These smiles are genuine. They are genuine. This did so much for us as teammates and, like I said, a district. This was more than a helpful, informative session. This actually became our instructional vision. Our district had to examine problems we were experiencing throughout all of the grade levels. We identified writing. Our students were not engaged, had zero desire to do it, and were lacking foundational skills. We came up with the hypothesis to test. If teachers use AI to generate engaging real-world projects with embedded writing tasks, then students will be more deeply engaged and produce writing samples. The results were more than we could imagine or ever hope for. Two of the key results that I would like to highlight are higher scores on teacher evaluations. Every single teacher participant, received higher evaluation scores. Higher evaluation scores mean more successful teachers. Successful teachers equal successful students. We also had higher levels of student engagement measured by our teammates. They sat in and observed us and looked for student participation. With the higher levels of student engagement, that produced quality writing samples. Students were willing to go the extra mile to do the work. And in return, they were successful. For my individual class project, I designed an October-themed project-based unit that focused on writing. Our main goal was to get my students to write a 5 to 6 paragraph expository essay on an October-themed topic of their choice. I know with our hypothesis, I was only responsible for just using AI for my lesson plan. I decided to take it a step further and allow my students to use AI along with writing instruction. My students had zero clue what AI was for. They automatically thought AI was cheating. They all shouted at me, "We cannot use that. That is cheating, Ms. Montoya. We cannot do that. Please explain to me how it's cheating." Well, we type in a question and we get an answer and we write it down. That is cheating. We're copying. You're correct with that part, but that's not how we use AI. I had to clearly define the purpose of AI. I had to teach them how to correctly prompt AI because they had to remember, AI is not human. It is only going to answer what you ask. So they learned to correctly prompt, and they learned that AI was a lot more than just cheating. They decided as a class to use Google Gemini because it is a free resource, it was student-friendly, and it complied with our school system. I also used Google Gemini for the same reason. It helped me create lesson plans that were meaningful and powerful with AI embedded in it. Why did I decide to do this? Well, our team needed sound data. We needed to show the rest of our staff members that AI is important. AI is not just something you use to save time. AI is not just something that's going to give our students answers. It's much more. We needed them to be on board. Personally, for my classroom, I know I needed this and my students needed this. We needed this to gain confidence. My students lacked confidence and foundational skills in writing. The results? Astounding. 19 of my students participated in this project, with 3 of them being special needs students. Every single one of my students created a writing piece. Over half of my class received a passing grade and was able to show that they could write a 5 to 6 paragraph essay. Before I tell you and go on about my benchmark results, this is something that maybe doesn't look like a big change, but it was a big change for our classroom. Several of my students came to me not knowing how to write a paragraph, one simple paragraph. They did not know what an introduction was, a conclusion, what body paragraphs were. They lacked organizational skills. Our benchmark is graded on a 10-point rubric. It is not graded by me, it is graded by a colleague. The fall benchmark class average was 3 out of 10. our winter benchmark, which was taken in November, we saw a gain. The average rose to 4.7. This was just 3 months of us using AI along with our instruction. One student increased from 0 to 6 points. One of our special needs students increased from 0 to 4 points. One of my students received a 9 out of a 10. To me, numbers are wonderful, but it goes beyond the measure of numbers. My students' confidence skyrocketed, not just in writing, but other subjects. We chose to use AI in other subjects as well. They have more meaningful and powerful conversations. That's conversations with me, with each other, whether that's collaborative groups or partners. The biggest compliment we received on this was from a substitute teacher. She was a former teacher at Miami as well. She told me, "I don't know what you're doing with those kids, but I have never heard 6th grade students speak with that vocabulary or talk the way they were talking." She said they were really talking about the subject. They were really into it. That, to me, was enough measurement for success, that we were doing something right. My students now know AI is a thought partner. It is just not something you get an answer from. They know it's never going to take their place. They know they have a distinct writing style and voice that AI will not take away. They know it is more like a peer reviewer. They desire to teach other students about AI, and they have been. They were also enthusiastic to share their AI experiences, and they had the chance to. Our class was the first elementary group to participate in the Miami Unified School District Business Partner Cafe. This is usually reserved for high school students. It's led by high school students. A panel of 4 of my students answered AI questions. They answered, how did they use AI in their project-based writing assignment? Over 100 people heard their story. This included community members, business owners, other superintendents, other principals, and other teachers. All of my students had a part in preparing for this. The feedback I received from the audience was, I can't believe 6th graders are doing this. I can't believe 6th graders know how to use this. I can't believe how confident they were in their answers. They really know why they're using AI. Key wins and milestones. I became a confident teacher. I grew. I could tell that from my evaluations. Last year, my evaluations, I mostly scored 3s, which was okay. I was just starting to learn the NIET rubric. This year, I rose to a 3.8 with several 4s and 5s. It helped me better understand the NIET rubric. It gave me examples. Now I know what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm thankful for that. I developed an understanding that learning is messy and you have to be vulnerable. I was vulnerable with my students in learning new programs with this. AI, I used it for lesson planning for an evaluation. It suggested this program that we've never used. I told my students that day, I haven't used this, you haven't used this, but together we're going to learn and we're going to do this. We helped each other. As a result, it was successful, but the level of respect in my classroom is unmeasurable, and it's still like that today. Sharing is powerful. I will continue to share my AI journey as much as possible. I was able to present at our district. I sat on a panel at Agua Fria AI Summit. We will be hosting a conference for Gila County. I am here today in front of you. I will continue to do that. as much as possible because it's important. Rural areas often lack funding for resources and professional development opportunities. Our students often graduate less prepared than urban counterparts. We face an academic disadvantage, but through programs that we've been offered, we can bridge that gap. It's possible. Communities need to know that AI is part of our future, and our students have the ability to learn and use it in a proper manner. AI also has the ability to enhance our instructional practices. All educators need to know we are capable of learning and integrating AI in our classroom. Programs like Raise AI Collaborative are necessary. We need those in order to get ahead. We need programs like that to be able to network, to be able to share our stories. In hearing those stories, like I did, I am able to believe that I can do it. There is no geographical boundaries that can prevent us from doing it, and also, a teacher's ability is irrelevant. I knew nothing about AI before I started this journey, and look where I am at today, and I am still growing. Thank you so much for allowing me to share my story with you.
Is this thing on? Okay, good morning, everyone. I think you can already tell why we had Jennifer open up the day today. Whenever we talk about AI, in education, it seems like we are educators talking to other educators. And there aren't very many experiences where we get to talk to an audience like this of education supporters. And because we have you all here today, those of you who really are our backdrop that's like helping us to do better for our students, we felt like today had to be grounded and started in the classroom with the teacher perspective. Now, my job today is really short. I'm just going to set up our spotlight speakers, and I'm going to do that really quickly. Here's the story. In November of 2022, ChatGPT kind of took us all by storm. And 2023 and 2024, we were kind of in the education space a hot mess. And what I mean is, there was so much uncertainty, right? There was so much uncertainty because this technology actually allows us to do things that it's never allowed us to do before. We've never had a technology that could actually write a 5-paragraph essay for us if prompted to do that. So educators all around Arizona and the United States and the world were kind of like, what do we do about this, right? There was just mass uncertainty. And you heard Chad talk earlier about the fight or the flight or the freeze. We saw kind of two main camps. We saw the fight camp, and the fight camp was all about banning this technology. We are going to fight this, and we are going to win, and we're going to ban it, right? Fight. We also saw a lot of freeze. We're just going to put our head down, and maybe if we don't look at it, it'll go away. But luckily for us, today, in 2026, we actually have a path forward. And that is only because we have people that we're willing to forge. And what it takes to forge with a new technology like AI, with capabilities that we didn't know that even existed or could exist, what it really takes is courageous leadership. It takes vulnerability. It takes an innovator's mindset. And so today, what we're so excited to present to you all is the people, the education leaders in Arizona who acted with courage and innovation, because they were our forgers. And so what you're going to hear today is we have 10 speakers today, 10 speakers, and they are each going to talk about a bright spot, something that they were courageous enough to try when there was no playbook, when nobody was telling them this is the way, when they weren't going to a conference presentation and following somebody else's lead, because they were the ones forging the path. Now we get to benefit from their expertise, as does Arizona. So what's going to happen next is our first topic today is really about school and district leadership in the era of AI. And we're going to hear from 3 terrific leaders. They're going to each do a short spotlight presentation, and then they'll sit down for a panel and for some question and answer from you all. And to kick us off, I get to introduce a colleague and a friend, Dr. Richard Ramos. We've known each other for a long time. He is the superintendent of Miami Unified School District. And he is an exceptional leader with experience in both urban and rural school districts. He is a courageous leader. He is an action researcher. He is an innovator. And he has never, as long as I've known him, met a challenge that he wasn't willing to take on. And he has shown that, especially through this past year, leading Miami through the AI journey. So with that, I'd like to welcome Dr. Ramos to the stage.
Thank you, Dr. Lindsay. I'd also like to thank Dr. Geston as well as Mr. Luna. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here today. And yes, I'm going to represent you well, I promise. So I have a really unique experience because I spent most of my career, 27 years, in Phoenix, Arizona, as a teacher, assistant principal, executive director, assistant superintendent. So I had this really, in my mind, I wanted to go back and give to my hometown community before I retired. And so in my mind, I was going to give them 2 years and retire. That was 3 years ago. And so I have an interesting role because I became the superintendent after being the executive director for 4 months. I got moved into the role. And so it was really a challenge going from being the executive director of innovation and learning, where I could push the limits, to being a superintendent where I now had to be compliant. And so it was a big shift. And then you're also taking down traditional instruction as well, because you know that's no longer working for kids, that we had to do something much more engaging, collaborative, and innovative. And so as the superintendent of Miami, I'm so glad that I had the experience that I had in Phoenix, Arizona, because I was able to take my resources with me. Because I can't believe what rural schools are doing without the funding and without the resources. And it is definitely a detriment to our students. And so I'm fortunate because I had a lot of those resources come with me. And I'm also fortunate because I had the opportunity to hire an all-new administration team. And that's where AI came in. Because I have in my mind the way that we're supposed to be structured, and there's supposed to be a certain infrastructure within where master and mentor teachers and administrators are supposed to be supporting effective instruction in the classroom. So I'm patiently waiting and providing professional development to our administrators as they're trying to provide professional development to their teachers. I'm patiently waiting for us to get there where we can do some field testing and some action research and really see if we can have an impact on teaching and learning. Well, mid-year came and I could not wait any longer, and I'm talking about the 25-26 school year. All new administration, 2 assistant principals, brand new, 2 principals, brand new, an executive director of special education, brand new, and then also an instructional coach that is brand new, and I only had 2 returning instructional coaches. So I am diving deep and thinking, how am I going to bring them to a space where they're comfortable doing field testing? So I decided to go ahead and dig in and do it with them. And so this is where artificial intelligence comes in. So you have to know, for context, I had the opportunity to do a dissertation in 2018 when we didn't have artificial intelligence. All right? Needless to say, my office was a mess with Post-it notes and also index cards all over the place. All right? So we're going to go to 25-26. We need to develop a problem of practice. And so I'm working with the administrative team. There are 8 of them and myself. And I bring some research to them. I typed into artificial intelligence, provide me with some articles on effective teaching strategies. I want to know the top 5. So I print those articles out and I bring them to the team. We read them, we grapple through them. In the second meeting, one of the instructional coaches says, every single one of these articles talks about feedback and how important feedback happens to be in providing immediate feedback to teachers once you're in the classroom. I said, perfect. What should we do with that? All right, so we have a problem of practice now. We're deciding what the research question should be. So they come up with ideas, and we're all over the place. The focus is on students, the focus is on teachers, the focus is on the strategy, the focus is on both teachers and students. And I'm like, I could not be in a more diverse group of people right now, right? So I kind of see the thread, and I use AI to type in all of their questions so they could give us a common thread. Like, what is the common thread that the teachers are looking for? And what we identified as the research question was, how does giving feedback to teachers impact effective instruction and student achievement? And that's where we landed. They thought they were ready to go. Let's go into the classroom and give feedback. And I was like, no, what do we do next? And so they were at a loss, so I said, let's turn to AI and see if there are any strategies out there as a thought partner so we can go ahead and determine if there are some strategies out there that we might be able to use. A different instructional coach says, hey, have you ever heard of the SBI model? And I said, tell us what the SBI model is. And if you don't know it, the S stands for situation, the B stands for behavior, and the I stands for impact. And so I said, that's perfect. Does everybody believe that we should be giving feedback using SBI? We had agreement in the room. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and start setting up our intervention, and we're going to start setting up our methodology. Man, was I so happy to have AI, because everything they were bringing at me was a lot of ideas. And so I needed to figure out a way how to compact their ideas and come up with all of the themes in order to support them. Meetings are weekly, so time is not on my side with everything else that I have to do. And so I was able to plug that information in and have information for them in real time by the next meeting. So they were having to choose just from options rather than having to go through the information themselves. I would give them anywhere from 3 to 5 options, and they would select that information and we would go about implementing it. We had some naysayers, believe me. They were like, what are we doing? Narrative data is not data. Why are you calling it data? And I said, well, you happen to be arguing with somebody who did a qualitative study. Narrative data is data because you don't have stories to support those numbers, and you need to have both in a mixed methodology. So all I needed to do was develop a form. We used AI to go ahead and develop a form for them to go ahead and fill out when they visited classrooms. We also decided we would gather our observation notes for 15 minutes. We would score the teacher on a rubric, and then we would go ahead and bring all that information back. And I was given the assignment to interview all of those teachers in a focus group interview. So we had 8 teachers, 8 researchers, and I had to gather the data from week to week, make sense of it so that way they could go ahead and analyze it every week. Would you believe by the second week, all that data analysis that was happening and the topics that were coming up and surfacing, as well as the trends that they were seeing, by the second week, everybody was on board. And the teachers, the administrators were saying, the teachers are responding to this. Like, I'm giving feedback within 24 hours, the teachers are responding, and we went from having like no trust to like them anticipating us being in the classroom because it's another thought partner. I was so fortunate for AI because it was analyzing the data and coming up with all of the trends and the themes that we needed to focus on. So to make a long story short, by the 5th week, everybody was bought in. And so I decided to write about the experience, and I took all of spring break to write about the whole entire experience, and I used AI to develop my charts because we had to chart like what teachers were a part of this. I also had to chart and graph the comparisons from where they were and where they are now. I did another focus group where I was able to compare what was the first focus group like and what did they indicate during the second focus group. We went from a very non-trusting environment to, I hope this is not over because I need that second person in my room as another pair of eyes. And so we did a study that took 5 weeks. If I was analyzing data and if I was the one like reviewing the information and like refining those questions, that would have never been a 5 to 6 week study. That would have been more like a semester to a year-long study. And I just wanted to say that AI helped me sort through that data and get teachers ready and prepared. I don't know about you, but when I did my dissertation, it cost me thousands of dollars to have my paper edited. Today, I used AI, and it gave me choices for like different vocabulary that I can use, checked all my spelling and my grammar, and I didn't have to pay a cent. So it has really changed the way that we do business, and I have a whole group of administrators that also understand how to do action research and field testing, and they can't wait for the next cycle of research. So thank you so much for allowing me to be here today. I hope I did Miami, Arizona well. Yeah, thank you.
Good morning. I'm introduce myself. My name is Tracy Metcalf-Rowley. I'm the Senior Director of Educational Technology and online education and field support from Tucson Unified School District. Go Cats. Yes, who's number 1? Okay. So I'm going to tell you the story about how we got a policy for use of artificial intelligence. It's lessons learned from our school district, 250 square miles with 43,000 kids. I want to start with asking you all as you're sitting here, how many of you have an AI policy for your organization, your group? Look, 1, 2, smattering of hands. Glad to see those of you with your hands up. Those of you who don't have your hands up, you're behind. You need to do it. You need to do it. I actually have given, if you want to zap there, I have my district's AI policy, which I helped to create. I led what I like to call a dream team. I invited everybody and anybody. If anyone said anything to me about AI as I was walking across the parking lot, I grabbed them and said, I want you on my task force. Come join us. So I took everybody and anyone to be a part of crafting our AI policy. And I really think when you start to do this, that's the way to go. I had people from HR, from the bus, from transportation. I had teachers. I had principals. I even had students. I had everybody who was a part of helping us develop our AI policy. And so we were looking at what do we want. The first thing we started with was what's our basic principles? What's our non-negotiables? What are the number one things that we want to make sure that we address in our policy? What's the most important things that we want to include? And then number two, we wanted to make sure we kept our language open-ended to ensure that the policy evolved. I didn't want to spend all that time writing a policy where we would have to come back every year to change it. So as we were writing our policy, you want to make sure you keep it open-ended so that it doesn't in 4 months become obsolete. So that's a couple of things that I would suggest if for those of you who don't have a policy or those of you who do, looking at your policy and evaluating it. We came up with our non-negotiables that it was important for us that we had ethical stewardship. I called it the SHIELD. Risk mitigation, privacy, security. Making sure everybody's information is private, that it's secure, that we are not putting ourselves into a situation where our data is being used. Then we wanted to make sure we had a human-centered agency, the guardrails, focused on accountability and human in the loop. How many of you have gotten something turned into you, you're on a committee, you're reading something, and you're reading it, and you're like, this is AI? How many? Yeah, look, everybody's raising your hand. You're like, this, you didn't write this. So that's our number two is you got to have a human in the loop. So part of our policy is it must, whatever you use AI for, you must vet it. A human must look at it, must vet it before putting it out. So that is the second piece of our policy. So number one, making sure we're covering, that was our most important, the privacy, security. Number two, human, it cannot replace humans. And then number three, how is it responsibly used? How can students, teachers, and staff, what do we recommend for the responsible and ethical use of AI? And this is one place that I think, I hate to say it, my district excels at. I've read many other districts' AI policies. What makes ours different is that we didn't just write it for kids. We wrote it for teachers, and we wrote it for district-level staff as well. So it encompasses all members of our community, of our group. And I would suggest that for you as well. Make sure you're looking at a policy as you're creating it or whatever you already have that covers everybody in your group, not just one section. And we have found that's been very helpful for us to include all parts, all different people in our school district. So then I had to go in front of our leadership, which in my case is our governing board. And I walked up to it, and I had already had a month of blistering call to the audiences, attacking our policy and me like I created AI. The call to the audience with the governing board was brutal. And so I stepped up and I said, I'm not here to debate whether we want to have AI or we're going to use AI. I said, that ship's gone. Like that ship has sailed. We have to have a policy it's how we build the bridge. The canyon's still widening, but we need to have a policy because in the absence of a policy, we have nothing. I got one person to turn on that one. I have 5. So I walked in, I acknowledged the fear. I talked about the elephant in the room. The people think it's going to be like the Terminator, right? That AI is going to come in and blow everybody up. So I acknowledged the fear. I validated that immediately out of the gate. People say it's going to take away students' ability to be creative thinkers, or I just acknowledged as fears just to get it out there to say this. Yes, people are fear. It's that flight that we were talking about. And then I talked about the why. In the absence of by not having a policy, we have nothing. So the why, what do we need it? We need it for protection. We want to make sure that it protects our staff, our teachers, and our students. And then we also talked about in the policy that we have the human must almost be responsible for that, for whatever you come up with. And then the AI literacy. We have been training and training and training I've trained everybody from our health services people to our bus drivers. We have I trained school safety. Now that was interesting. It was a big room of like 50, guys with, guns and everything. So I trained them on how they could use it, and how they can use it competently, responsibly, and ethically. And then we also built into our policy a vetting process. So when people say we want to use this AI tool, we want to bring this in, we have a policy of of approving it. What will we approve as a district? So I am a member of the Government AI Coalition. If any of you are working in a government capacity, I highly recommend joining this group. It is run by the city of San Jose, has taken the leadership position in this, and I really learned so much. There's all kinds of government agencies from across the whole country. And I thought this visual that they came up with was really, really good. I also have given you the QR code if you're interested as well. So again, talks about training, getting training. That has got to be so critical. You got to be training your people on what is AI, what's the ethical use, what does it mean to be responsible, what do you want your people to know? So training has got to be built into rolling out this policy. And then reevaluating it too, looking back, is this working? Is this, what do we need to, maybe we need to go to the next step and the next step. So we are actually going to the third step now of our third iteration of AI. We've gone past just what is AI, but now we're talking about how to use it. What are some different ways that you can bring it into the classroom, bring it into using it in your school, whatever. So we have gone to, and we've moved because we see that need. So I encourage you all, those of you who did not raise your hand about having a policy, please, I hope if this inspires you to think about it or even evaluate what you already have and maybe make some changes. I am very happy to be able to introduce Micah Malloy. He's coming up after me, and he's from Brophy, and I thank you so much for your time.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for that. My name is Micah Malloy. I'm the Assistant Principal for Instruction and Innovation at Brophy College Prep. This is my 20th year at Brophy. Time flies when you're having fun, for sure. And I'm grateful to be here and talking about AI with all of you this morning. I want to tell you the brief story about how we came up with this, which are our AI usage guidelines. We believed early on, along 3 years ago, which is 3 decades in AI terms, but we believed early on that if we used AI correctly, if we went about this correctly, it had the ability not to just evolve teaching and learning, but to revolutionize teaching and learning, which we think really needs to happen. We knew that we wanted to lean into AI, and we knew that we wanted to walk with our students while we all learned about AI and how to use it effectively. We were having lots of conversations, and 3 different things came up in those. One was that it was totally futile to try to block AI. We didn't want to do that, number one. And number 2, it would be totally futile. Yes, we could restrict ChatGPT on our campus Wi-Fi, but I can't do anything about students' phones, and I can't do anything about their Wi-Fi at their house or Starbucks or wherever they go. So that was off the table. Number 2, it had to be off the table because, yes, you could use AI to cheat. Absolutely. Students cheated well before AI, though, right? So we weren't super concerned about that, especially because there were so many really beneficial uses of AI that had absolutely nothing to do with cheating, and nothing to do with short-circuiting critical thinking, and nothing to do with cutting off creativity, and everything to do with bolstering all of those things and bolstering human connection. And we were seeing evidence of that on our campus with our students. So there was a lot of good to come from this. And 3, we saw this as an equity issue. That if you think about it, if a student 3 or 4 years ago didn't understand a topic, if that student went to Google or found a video on Khan Academy or went to YouTube and found some other teacher from who knows where giving a lesson on that, and that helped that student understand that content, particularly late at night, when a teacher wasn't available and parents weren't available, we patted that student on the back and said, congratulations, you were resourceful and you learned, you went around a problem and you figured this out on your own. Great work. But with AI, if a student went to ChatGPT and said, I'm having trouble understanding stoichiometry and chemistry, can you please explain this to me in a different way or at a lower grade level? Can you please relate it to, I'm really into baseball, can you please relate it to baseball just to help me understand it? And if that helped that student understand that, maybe he was cheating because he used AI, even though anybody else could go find anything on Google or Khan Academy and we'd pat them on the back. Similarly, 4 years ago, if a student was fortunate enough to have a tutor or fortunate enough to have well-educated parents, that student could get help on any essay that he or she wanted. Many schools have a peer editing network. We have a peer editing network, and there are posters advertising this peer editing network in every English classroom on campus. And for students who struggled with writing, we would push them to the peer editing network, and we would celebrate when they went there, and when they had somebody else help them revise their essays and show them how to do it better. And students who had the means to go to a professional tutor or had parents who could help them, we celebrated that student getting extra help on their essay and turning in a really polished product. Good for you for using your resources. If you were a student who was from a blue-collar family, though, or did not have resources to pay for an extra tour or a tutor, or had parents who didn't even speak English, you were just out of luck. And if that student went to AI and said, can you help me revise this essay? Can you help me find problems in this essay? Can you help me think of a way to better frame this argument or to better say this? That student was cheating. Not the students with means. They were fine. They could have their tutor help them all they wanted. Students without means, though, who turned to AI, maybe cheating. So this was an equity issue for us as well. We were having all these conversations, and we knew that we needed to put together some practical, easy-to-follow guidelines for our students and our teachers. Early on, I started talking with students on campus, and those today still remain my favorite conversations, is to just ask students, what are you doing with AI? What cool things are you seeing? What concerns you? What questions do you have? What should I know about it? Those conversations have been the best conversations I've had. So I was having that conversation with our student AI committee. All this was on the table, and I said, look, I need you all to help come up with our guidelines. Go. And they looked at me like, what do you mean? I said, I need you to come up with our guidelines. Who better to come up with our guidelines than you, the students? This is going to impact you more than anybody else, so let's have it. What do you think? And really pretty quickly, one of the students said, well, what if we flip the paradigm? I said, well, what do you mean? And he said, well, right now the policy is you can use AI if your teacher gives you permission. But considering everything we just talked about, what if we flip that model so that you can always use AI unless your teacher tells you not to? And everyone in the room went silent as if that student just said something really naughty. And I said, go on. And they started brainstorming all sorts of ideas, and they were bright enough to say, well, hold on. Like, we don't want to open Pandora's box to cheating here, so we'll just define AI usage levels. We'll decide what is level 1 and what is level 2 and what is level 3, and then we'll just draw the line. And anything below this line is okay to use at all times. Anything above this line, you need your teacher's permission. That makes sense. And we started workshopping that. And we spent a couple months workshopping that. And what you see here is what they created. And this went to our adult AI committee, who gave it a thumbs up. That then went to our academic council, and that then went to the rest of our administrators. And this now is our AI usage policy on campus. It is also, I hear, the AI usage policy for other schools around the state who have seen this and modeled it, and I know other schools around the country as well who have picked up on this. This has been really helpful for our students and our teachers and our parents because it defines what is okay and when it's okay, and it takes all of those other factors into account. That it doesn't ban AI as something just because it could be used for cheating, but it celebrates what it can be used for, and hopefully is helpful for students as we walk with them to figure out how to use this in the future. And again, the best part is that our kids came up with this, because our kids are really fantastic, and if we walk with them, then their future is really bright. Thank you.
So we've heard from 3 amazing district and school leaders today. And when I think about what you all talk about, and I think about some of that common thread, what I really hear is that vulnerability to do something different. Dr. Ramos talked about, how he modeled for his staff and these new leaders in your district how to use AI for good. And Tracy talks about it's not going away. I didn't create it, but let's put some guardrails around it. And we have to be brave enough to do that. And Micah gets so brave to invite student voice into the process for setting up the rules. So what we're going to do right now, I have one question that I'd love for you all to answer very briefly, if possible, and then we'd love to turn it to you for questions about leading schools. And the topic today for this section is really leadership in the age of AI. So I'm going to start with Micah, and I'm going to ask you, as an assistant principal, how would you define what it means to lead a school in the age of AI?
Hopefully I'm practicing this, which is figuring it out, right? Nobody has the answers to how to do this. We cannot just hire an AI expert to come in and tell our schools or our organizations how to effectively use AI. All of the experts who are out there are figuring it out right now. I talk about the AI frontiers a lot. I talk about AI being at least a metaphorical frontier, and that we're out there in the Wild West without a lot of rules and without a lot of experts, forging our path ahead. And we may not like being in that position. It is really uncomfortable being in that position. It is really hard to be in this position. And what I also know is that our kids are out on this frontier already. Whether we like it or not, whether we want to be out there or not, our kids are out on the AI frontiers using AI, whether they tell you that or not. They may be using it well and they may not be. And that's really significant, because our role right now, I mentioned it before, I think is to walk with students. They are out there on our own. We would be negligent to let them just wander around in the Wild West on the frontiers without us walking with them. We don't have to know all the answers, because we don't. We just need to be comfortable out in the unknown. We have to be comfortable being uncomfortable, and knowing that if we hold our mission and what is core and our core values at the center, then those will steer us in the right direction. And we're going to mess it up here and there along the way, but we're going to learn from those iterations of failure and move to a brighter horizon.
Tracy, as the leader in a district who's responsible for both instructional technology but also the security of your digital systems, how would you define leading that charge in the age of AI?
For me, I'm always asking the question about when people come to me and they're like, we want this and we want to use that. I always have to look at what are they really asking for and what is it? So looking at what is the data, or what is the privacy agreements? What is the security agreements? So you have to look at those things. And then we have to look at, I always think about too is what is the impact going to be? What are they really asking for? Because I think they're putting AI into everything now. And you hear about it all. I mean, my goodness, this morning I heard them talking about they're bringing AI now to baseball, to judge pitching. and the call of the umpires. I mean, AI it's everywhere. So asking people the questions about what is this, what's the impact of it, what are they going to do with the data? I think those are all really critical things to have people reflect, and not just to get, like you said, not just to have AI, but why, and asking those important questions.
Great. That kind of gets to the value system that we all hold, whether there's an AI tool or not.
Right.
Dr. Ramos, leading in the age of AI from the superintendent perspective.
I think a lot of things needed to happen over the course of time. So I'm going to go back to when I took over as superintendent. One of the things that was really important is making sure they knew that AI was available. And so I need to explain context really quick, because we went from a technology director in 24-25 that shut everything down. No, we're not using AI. And so I knew that we were on the edge of something big, and that we could not have a technology director with that mindset. And so my job was to make sure the right people are on the bus. And so making people really uncomfortable in this age last year, I had to make sure that there was a significant change that happened and hire somebody who was more open-minded, who opened opportunities for people rather than closing them down. So that switch happened. And then I knew we were on the edge of something, so I partnered with this absolutely phenomenal LLC known as EdVolve. And so I knew last year that I needed to go ahead and have conferences for teachers that they could attend optionally. And I saw who was attending those 4 meetings, and they were 4-hour sessions. And I was taking note of what people were attending those meetings, so that way I could use them as a guiding coalition. And so when we were offered the opportunity to apply for Project RAISE, and RAISE stands for Rural Artificial Intelligence in Schools of Excellence, when we applied for that program, we already had those participants because they were the ones participating and leading in those conferences already. And I knew it was my job to also build in some, this year, 25-26, some authentic professional development to get teachers to recognize that these tools could help them lesson plan, level reading for students, differentiate instruction. And when I showed them how to do that, in addition to our change in technology, in addition to having the opportunity to go to artificial intelligence optional trainings, we were already moving in a direction of being very innovative and on the edge of success.
I think, I'm just checking the time here. We have about 4 minutes or so. I'd love to open it up if you have any questions for any of our 3 panelists before break. Coming around with a mic.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. Mr. Malloy, thank you for being here. It's a great day to be a Bronco, always. Dr. Ramos, I actually had a question for you. Your narrative about research really, and like identifying those trends and those common threads was, I think, really resilient when it comes to using AI for specializing our focus, making sure we're, as organizations, institutions, moving the needle and really focusing on where our attention needs to be. I think while AI is very much a black box still, it's increasingly more common knowledge that the more data that exists and that more data you can introduce to your models or your tools or software, the better they operate. So I'm curious about anyone's perspective on the best practices to collecting that data. You mentioned you use Google Forms for your research, or forms to collect that sort of narrative text input data. But are there additional practices that people can take in mind that might be embedded in your systems already that could help collect more data?
So we were using that Google form that we were analyzing from week to week, but we also had observation notes where we were in the classroom taking like 15 minutes of notes of what the teacher was saying, what students were doing, and all of those notes was information that we could also analyze. In addition to that, we had those focus group interviews, so I had the transcripts for beginning and end. In addition to that, this is the part I didn't mention, teachers, the instructional coaches were setting up meetings within 24 hours with the teachers, and I had their individual growth plans, their journals. So that way I could see what those coaching meetings, what was happening, what people were saying, so that data could also be analyzed. So there was a lot of data that I had that I could collect and go ahead and sort it by using ChatGPT and Gemini in order for us to get central themes and descriptions for what was happening and what was not happening in the classroom.
I'll just add in that, from a very practical standpoint, include that in your prompt, right? You can build a custom GPT or a gem in Gemini or a project in Claude or whatever you're using. You can add all of that data into it so it just knows it, right? And then you can just ask any question based on that data. That's really helpful, and that's an efficient way to use AI for sure. And if you're not going to build a custom thing, you can just add a spreadsheet like, hey, include this data, analyze it based on this in your prompt, instead of just asking based on all of your training data, what do you know? You could really narrow it down to one specific task. Just a quick note though, and Tracy mentioned this, you have to know that the tool you're using has your privacy locked down. Please don't put student information into a free ChatGPT account. It's not secure at all and just goes back to the machine. So we're really intentional about making sure the tools that we're using and tools that we're putting that sort of identifiable information to meet really strict student privacy guidelines. So that's a side note, but include it in your prompt is, I think, the short technical answer.
Yeah, is there another question? Yeah, thank you.
Hi, good morning. Whitney Daniels here. Just a quick question. From you all's perspective, how can state government and leadership lean in to support the efforts that's happening in real time on the ground? And what are some opportunities for further collaboration to maximize impact and the wonderful perspectives and work that's currently happening?
Well, I think we have a lot. The collaboration among all of the school districts, which Dr. Lindsay and has been able to put together through NAU, through her office, has been amazing. Also ASTE, it's Arizona Technology Education, but bringing together all the different districts to talk and having the state being involved in that, I think would be amazing. And then providing that guidance for people, providing a model for people. I think that would be very helpful for everybody. But it is happening. We've done it without the Department of Education. It is happening, and it's definitely been very helpful for us in our school district. Finding what's other districts doing, what is everybody else doing. So I think that's been very helpful.
Yeah, and I'll just add one thing to that. There is a collaborative around Arizona. It's called the Arizona AI Alliance. And ASTE is part of it, the Institute, the Department of Education, and we would invite you to join us, and we can talk about how to get better acquainted with the Alliance. I think we might have time if there's one more question before we take a short break.
Hi, thank you to all three of you. Really compelling. I've heard a lot of you talk about AI as a thought partner, and our keynote speaker used that term a lot. And it seems like you all are leaning in as leaders, as a system, to having students use the tool as a thought partner, and there are really positive academic outcomes on the other side of this. Have you seen, as students and teachers interact more with AI tools and become better and better and more helpful, they're incredibly insightful thought partners, how has that changed the interactions between students and teachers, teachers and teachers, students and students? You mentioned, keeping humans in the loop. I'm just curious, good, bad, or indifferent, what early observations you're seeing in terms of how it's changing human-to-human interaction, and then how are you thinking about, as a system, how you respond to that? Again, not necessarily value judgment, good, bad, or indifferent, but just curious what observations you're making, how you're thinking about the changing role of human-to-human interaction. Hey, and I'm sorry, Steve Erickson, I'm with the Desert Botanical Garden.
I've seen a couple things. One, our digital natives are very, very comfortable around technology, and that does not always equal being very good at using technology at all. So they are very comfortable with AI being a thing that they turn to very regularly, and a lot of them aren't necessarily very good at using it effectively at all, and they need our guidance on that. Our students tell me that it is really helpful when their teachers walk them through how to write an effective prompt and how they can ask AI for feedback on a specific part of an essay or for guidance on understanding something specific. So that has been, I think, really helpful for our teachers to work with students on showing them how to do that so that students know how to use it effectively. For the students who are using it effectively, it is really amazing and exciting to me, the places that they are going and the things that they are doing and the ways they are going about doing it that I don't know that we could have even imagined for them. Because the students who are using it really effectively are skyrocketing at exponential levels because they're taking advantage of these resources, which then allows them and their teachers to spend so much more time in conversation and in community. And instead of just grinding through tests or study guides or feedback, they're talking and they're dreaming and they're collaborating and they're using each other as thought partners as well. So twofold there, right? Opportunities for students to learn from us on how to use this tool effectively, and then students who do use it effectively skyrocketing and going places that we couldn't have imagined.
I think when they talk about the fight or flight, we definitely have the two camps of people I see. We have the people that don't want to see, they don't even want, they're sticking their head in the ground and pretend like they're not even hearing about it, they don't know about it. And then we have people who really want to get into using it. There's a lot of conversations among educators who are using it. I've used it this way, and they're learning from each other and collaborating. The unfortunate side I've also seen is now we have people pitted against each other. So we have some teachers, like our art teachers, who are like, no, they have to be creative. And then I have social studies teachers who want it because they see all the great ways that kids can bring in that art pieces into what they're teaching. So we've seen those kind of camps coming out, and it's been really interesting to navigate those waters, and we're still doing that.
I'm just going to share something really quick. Something that's been really awesome, those teachers that want to be innovative are bringing it into the classroom and having those conversations and using it as a thought partner. This is how I've seen one teacher use it so effectively. This writing piece, write your paper without the use of AI. And then I want you to go ahead and take the paper and decorate it with the language, use AI to improve your writing. So they're writing two different pieces, and just watching the kids' transformation and the excitement that they have in getting to see the difference from what they've taken, and written without using AI. Sure, they're being as creative as possible, but how much more word choice and vocabulary they can use to dress up their writing. I really applaud that teacher for working with the students on two very different pieces of writing.
I just want to mention that after the program is over today, we're going to have a little bit of time where people can linger. So if you have additional questions, there will be time for you to speak with the panelists or Helios staff or whatnot. We're going to take a short break. It's 10:27 right now. If we could be back, listen, I'm going to get you back, because I'm going to tell you who the next. I'm not supposed to walk in front of there. I'm going to tell you who the next speaker is. Remember how Micah said that he had a panel of students that wrote that AI usage guide? One of the students is our next speaker, and he's going to start speaking at 10:35. So I'll see you then.
All right, everyone, if you could grab your seat, I'm going to introduce our next speaker. So I shared about Brophy's usage guidelines and said our students created them. Senior Will Coaster was in the room where it happened 2 years ago. I won't say much more about him other than I really appreciate Will's perspective and his passion for going about this the right way and his perspective in education. Will wants to go to law school eventually, so I'll introduce Exhibit A of the positive potential of AI in education. Brophy Senior Will Coaster.
Thank you guys very much. First, I just want to give a quick shout out to Mr. Malloy. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak here, and as well as everyone else that invited me to speak here. Thank you guys very much. So to just get it started, I'm Will Coster. I'm a senior at Brophy College Prep, and I'm one of the co-presidents of the AI Student Committee. So first of all, I just want to give a quick heads up that I'm not an expert in artificial intelligence from a technical standpoint, but what I do hope that you guys take away is my unique perspective into the life of a student that sees AI being used on a daily basis with basically every one of my classmates around me. So I think if you were to ask people how students are using AI right now, the answer is usually simple. They use it to write essays, they use it to cheat, to take shortcuts, and that does happen, but what I want to say is I think Brophy's done a phenomenal job so far at really flipping that paradigm. So there's really 4 main takeaways that I want all you guys to grasp here. The first being, it's inevitable that a student that doesn't want to learn anything will find ways around working hard despite using AI or not. Most people, or I think we had a few presenters that touched on the fact that cheating didn't start with AI. There's always going to be people that lack that work ethic to work hard. And at that point, that's not a problem with AI, that's a problem with the student. But I think the use of AI is going to make that a lot more clear on how to flip that. The second being, even if you believe and have seen that AI has been taking jobs, I think it's going to be a matter of what students know how to use AI responsibly that really are able to take their careers into their own hands. The third being, for a teacher, I believe the first step to showing students how to use AI responsibly is to do the same and encourage classmates to do the same as well. People are going to learn by example, and what I've seen is the classes where my teachers are very used to using AI and welcome it are the classes where I feel I learn the most. The fourth is pretty simple, but the best way to learn how to AI is just explore it as much as possible. So I just want to give a quick rundown onto how AI kind of bursted onto the scene with Brophy. So sophomore year, I heard that there was this club called the AI Student Committee, and I didn't know much about it at all. And in all honesty, I was thinking this could look really good on my resume. And so I'm like, why don't I come and join this? But the first meeting, we talked about AI. People asked, what do you know about it? And no one knew anything about it. All we knew is that it was a tool that could be used to cheat, but also learn at a much higher level than it was before. And I'm like, that sounds really interesting. I need to take a bigger role in this. What shocked me was how willing students were to join immediately. And what I noticed immediately that it was a mixture of all 4 grade levels. So at the time, I was a sophomore, but I also saw freshmen that were very welcome to join in the club. I saw seniors that wanted to take initiative. And that was the kind of time I knew that AI, and Brophy's perspective of AI, could be different from other schools. And we hope that by seeing this, other schools will be more willing to adopt policies around AI that would make them more willing to use it. What stood out to me wasn't just how people used AI, but how quickly they made a decision about it. So we kind of talked about this before, but almost immediately it kind of broke into 2 categories of students. There was the category of students that completely rejected it and said, what is this? It's going to ruin AI. And honestly, most of my teachers kind of took this perspective too. I'd say that out of my, I think, 7 or 8 teachers I had my sophomore year, only maybe one of them was really accepting toward AI, and I'll touch on that a little bit more. But junior year, this was when I stepped into the role of president of the AI Student Committee. And this year, we had the opportunity of doing this thing called the AI Summit at Brophy, which is a really unique perspective on AI. So basically what we do is we focus on one issue of prevalence each year, and it happened to be AI that year. And so what we did is when I earned the role of co-president of the Student AI Committee, I thought, okay, this is our chance to kind of show students how should I be using AI responsibly. So we were able to interview a board of people about their perspective on AI. There were researchers, there were professors from colleges, and what's amazing about Brophy, and what I would like to see more high schools take the perspective of, is letting the students have a firsthand role in talking to teachers. So I think maybe 4 or 5 times through my Brophy career, I've actually been able to talk in a workshop directly to teachers and give my opinion on how I see AI and how they can utilize it in their classes more. And honestly, I'd say the teacher's #1 concern is fairness, okay? And I want to talk about this subject of fairness a little bit. I believe fairness isn't limiting access to artificial intelligence, but instead, it's really leveling the playing field by understanding that banning in schools will lead to more unequal access at home. So Mr. Malloy kind of brought up the topic of people are going to have the ability to hire tutors or have the ability to talk to educated parents at home. So why wouldn't we give every single student the opportunity to take the advantage, take their education into their own hands? I think Brophy did a fantastic job of not really reacting too fast, but instead handing it to the students to monitor how fast-paced AI was truly moving. And the next part that I want to touch on is working with teachers. So Brophy did a really good job at accepting this AI platform called Flint. And this was really when I saw AI take a more positive perspective in the eyes of teachers. And this was because teachers could actually create their own activities. And this is what I really want to talk about here. Teachers are worried that, still they're very reluctant to use AI, and the hesitation made complete sense because from their perspective, which I totally understand, they felt that it could replace the work that they'd spent years mastering. And I understand this, and what I like about what Brophy did is that they accepted this fear and they turned it into more of a supplementary tool instead of a direct source of learning. And what I mean by this is they didn't use AI as graded assignments. So one example that I want to talk about is from my AP Lang and AP Lit classes. So I think that writing is one of my strong suits, but I wouldn't say I'm an incredible writer by any stance. I don't think anyone is truly an incredible writer. There's always room to grow. But what I've found is that the best way to utilize AI is to put into it what you want to get out of it. So I knew that, so Brophy, let me back up a little bit. They take tests on this thing called Lockdown Browser, which is a secure platform where you can take tests without using outside sources. And so what I would do is I would take the test in Lockdown Browser. Sometimes I'd get a 5 on the AP scale, sometimes I get a 4. But what I'd learned from that is our teachers were actually, for the first time, asking us to use AI for our own good. So what they would say is take that writing assignment, no matter what score you got, and paste it into Flint and see what happens, or ChatGPT or Claude. And what I really learned from this is I might have gotten a perfect score in the eyes of the teacher, but it's really not, no teacher has the time to put the perfect 100% effort into every single essay they grade. I know for my AP Lang class, we had over 100 students in the class, and it'd be selfish of me to believe that each student gives 100% of their time and effort to every writing assignment. So one of the benefits that I've seen with Flint AI or ChatGPT, any of this, is that you can take a graded piece of work that you already received a grade on, and you can get so much more additional feedback that you weren't even aware of. So I really feel like with the use of AI, my writing abilities have grown so tremendously, and that's one of the positive benefits. So I believe that AI can help fill this gap by giving students more opportunity to iterate their work before it even gets to the teacher. And this allows them to test ideas, go through multiple drafts, and come into class with something more developed. So going to AP Calculus, I don't think that I'm really the best at math. That's not my strong suit. But one incredible thing that I've seen is teachers are actually creating activities for us outside of school. They say, if we go through this lesson, which is going to be very fast-paced, and you don't understand something, go to Flint immediately, go to ChatGPT, and have it explain the lesson to you. And in the matter of, I think, a month, I was able to go from a 3 to a 5 pretty quickly, just using ChatGPT. And what I do is I create a regiment, so it creates like a 30-minute study plan per day for me. And I'm able to take that study guide and build on what I learned. And then one amazing thing I love about these AI platforms is that you can archive all your work. So I have multiple folders in ChatGPT, AP Calculus folder, curriculum, and I have maybe 30 steps, 30 conversations that I've learned over time that I've been able to utilize and go back to. And what I really think this comes back to is the freedom that our teachers have given us in AI. Brophy is really a school where it allows students to use their imagination, I guess, and how they want to learn. And this is really important to take away. I know that cheating does occur at Brophy. It's going to happen. And what scares me is that cheating with AI has become even easier over time. There's this thing called Google Lens now where you don't even have to go to ChatGPT or Claude. You can literally just double-click, click search with Google Lens, and highlight the entirety of the page, and it tells you every single answer. And I personally know students that have used this Google Lens and have gotten a homework assignment done in roughly 10 minutes. But I think what's also interesting is that I have a few friends that have said, okay, I need to stop using AI. And what's interesting about this is most people say, okay, I have to stop cheating or I have to start using it for better purposes. But no, having the awareness that I have to stop using AI means people are actually thinking about the problems that arise with it. And I think that's what's so interesting in students is if they have this realization, it can be so much easier to learn about how to use AI respectfully in the future. So on the topic of work ethic and motivation, we kind of talked about it before, but it's inevitable that some students will find ways to work around effort with or without AI. And it doesn't really create laziness, but I've said this before, it amplifies choice because it gives the students the opportunity to say, how do I want to take my education into my hands? Do I really want to waste the educational opportunities that my parents are giving me? And if I do, what's that going to get me in the future? And I think this really comes back to the idea that tools don't replace discipline, they reveal it. Because with the use of AI, if you have a bunch of kids that know how to use AI responsibly, they're going to build habits that stick with them in the future. And overall, I think the students that know how to utilize AI to the best of their abilities are going to be the ones that are desired in the workforce. I know for law, I want to go into corporate law. That's the tentative plan right now. And people are going to say, okay, well, isn't AI going to take away all these opportunities to write, to analyze text? No, I think that they're going to hire the lawyers that have the best idea of how to utilize AI responsibly. And I also want to touch on the topic that people might believe, oh yeah, AI is going to take jobs, and I do think it's going to take jobs because a few of my dad's friends who actually run their own companies have seen it firsthand. AI is taking jobs. But I think that if you completely ignore it and you take away the sense of awareness, that's not going to do anything for your good. And so really it just comes down to how do I want to manage my AI usage as a student? The second point that I want to reiterate is responsible use. So even if AI continues to replace jobs or tasks, I kind of talked about this before, but students who learn how to use it will use it responsibly will be the most sought after. And I really think that this goes back to the 3-tiered guidelines that Brophy implemented when it shows students exactly how to use AI without abusing it. And what I think's amazing about this is that students have been really, really reliant on this system. And what's interesting is every single classroom in Brophy has a poster that shows the level 0, 1, 2, 3 of AI, and they're pretty good about it. People know the risks that come with AI usage, and there have been a few times actually where students have been accused of using AI, and they were confronted by the teacher about it. But one thing I like about Brophy is that confrontation by the teacher doesn't automatically mean you're in trouble. It just means that they want to know more about your thought process about how you completed that assignment. I know for me, one challenge that I think about is college essays. And the reason this is so worrying to me is that I spent a lot of hours writing my college essays. And to know that people can just paste essays into ChatGPT and create these incredible essays, that worries me. But I think what's interesting about this is that colleges know this. And I think even if you go to an AI checker and it says 20% AI, they'll know it's AI. And I think people are getting a lot better at realizing this, whether you know it or not. You can say, oh, it doesn't sound like AI to me. Well, it might sound AI to this Stanford admissions officer that just rejected you. And so that's kind of the takeaway here. We have to realize that we're only going to get what we put into AI. So I know for me with my college essays, I wrote them, I showed them to classmates, I showed them to my parents, I showed them to teachers, and then I also showed them to ChatGPT and said, how could I revise this essay and make it even more amazing to me and stand out? And so I don't necessarily think it's a problem with using AI, it's a problem with taking it as your own work and using it as yours. So the third thing I want to kind of talk about is teachers setting the tone. When teachers model responsible AI usage, I think students are really empowered to experiment safely. If AI is completely banned in classrooms, it's gonna discourage people from using it in public and more in private, and overall more cheating, I believe. So I saw this firsthand during this thing, core programming, during the summit, where teachers use Flint AI to generate examples, give feedback, and show their own trial and error. And so I've had a teacher actually walk me through how they create an AI assignment, and I was able to give them feedback on that, and then my classmates saw it because they projected it on the board, and they're like, okay, my teachers are showing me firsthand how to use AI responsibly. I'm gonna do the same. And that kind of leads to this feedback loop of exploration and accountability. You're gonna wanna explore as much as possible when it comes to AI, and honestly for me, I'm finding out new things about AI on a regular basis. For example, the other day, I thought I need to get better at prompt engineering, putting a prompt into ChatGPT and getting more specific answers. So I thought to myself, I'm gonna give a basic prompt to ChatGPT and I'm gonna say, create for me an incredible prompt so I can paste it in another tab of ChatGPT and let it do the work for me. And what I found is that when it created this pretty incredible prompt, it was so much even easier to use AI for me. And that's amazing to me that I'm still learning new things about AI on a daily basis. And I think that's just so important to see my classmates doing the same. And I think that's how success is gonna be built in the future. So for my last takeaway, I think the best way to use AI is to use it, to test it, break it, and reflect on it. You have to understand, that was the core of our AI summit when we hosted it at Brophy. And what was interesting to me is there was a lot of positive and negative feedback. A lot of people said that it was boring, which I understand. AI can be boring if you don't know how to use it to the best of your abilities. But if you understand that AI is a tool that could really propel you in a more successful future, I don't know about you guys, but I'd be so willing to learn about it on a daily basis. Also, the most striking takeaway, I think students who explore responsibly now are building habits that will define their academic and career advantages. I don't know if this is a direct correlation, but a lot of my friends that are extremely smart and just show this on a daily basis are the ones that use AI the most. And I'm not saying that you have to use AI to be successful, but I think that can really propel you to a better learning overall in your academic career. I just want to end by saying AI is here. It's unavoidable, and students who fail to responsibly experiment will struggle tomorrow. And I think that's the biggest takeaway overall, that there needs to be a sense of urgency within teachers to use AI in the classrooms. Don't be afraid of it. Show students that you can manage it responsibly and just see what happens. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hearing you speak makes me feel so confident about our future, right? Thank you. This morning, we heard about the leadership perspective. When we think about AI in education, we heard what superintendents and directors and principals are thinking and how they're leading systems. But we also heard a lot that this really falls on teachers to bring a mindset to the classroom, to think about, we heard a lot of our speakers talk about cheating. To quote Taylor Swift, cheater's gonna cheat, right? We heard a lot of that. And we know that the teachers in the classroom are going to be the ones that prepare the wills. And so with that, our next set of spotlights, I'm not supposed to walk in front of that, I keep forgetting, sorry. So our next set of spotlights are going to highlight teaching, learning, and instruction, and teacher professional development in the age of AI. And so our first spotlight today is Drew Olson, He is, first of all, I'll say you heard about the RAISE Collaborative. He was our Arizona coach for that project, so very familiar with the Miami team. He is also one of 2 Arizona Ed Tech Specialists of the Year for 2024-25. The other Ed Tech Specialist of the Year will be the next spotlight speaker. And Drew is, to my knowledge, the very first AI director of a school district in Arizona. And so with that, welcome, Drew.
So I like how Micah referred to the frontier and how those of us who are doing this work are just figuring it out. So even though I might have that title, definitely still in the stages of learning and learning with you all. So it's a pleasure to be here this morning. So before I show some artifacts from how we're kind of thinking differently about teaching and learning in the Agua Fria Union High School District, I want to give you a little background of our journey to get there. About 2-3 years ago, when ChatGPT came out, the fall of 23, following that, we wanted to jump all in terms of trying to prepare our staff. And that was coming up with some guidance, empowering some teachers to innovate. And what we realized was we really had to double down on ensuring that our staff had the resources. And when I talk about that, I mean that the capabilities of paid resources now far exceed anything that you're using from a free perspective, and that matters a lot. When you're making decisions as a leader about what AI can do for you and your organization, the tools themselves and their capabilities, when we're talking about now these advanced models, agents, things of that nature, that's a very different conversation than free tools. So early on, we got those resources for our staff so they could start to learn and understand the very frontier of capabilities. We developed some teams of teachers, and they started working in classrooms, but what we realized is they didn't have enough learning themselves. So we had to really double down on professional development, whether that was in-person trainings, virtual trainings, asynchronous offerings, to ensure that our staff understood that a culture of learning right now is essential, right? The necessary skill in the workplace is learning, because AI is now changing just about every facet of our organization, from teaching and learning to operations. There's departments that we work with that may have never really understood professional development and gone through that and now have to because of what AI has done in terms of impact. And so what we wanted to do was first identify our why for why we do AI integration. And that was, let's ensure that all of our students are AI literate by the time they graduate. And that was a very sort of surface level goal. It really spoke to kind of AI adoption in its early stages. What that then morphed to was, it's not just about AI. It's about preparing our students to have the agency to go on and be successful after their school careers. So everything that we're doing with AI in our district, we want to be aligned with that mission and vision for a learner agency. And so what I'm going to show you is we are in the middle of a school transformation where we're a high school only district that is changing to career academies, so that every student goes through their freshman year, they do some career exploration, they learn about professional skills, and they identify a career that they want to go into after their freshman year. Okay, and then junior year, they're exploring the career they're choosing. Senior year, they're going to go out and do some sort of field experience that's hands-on, real world. And as we're doing that, we're thinking through ways that AI can enhance that experience. And so what we wanted to do was provide a foundation for all of our freshmen, about 3,000 of them, that they all get the same training on AI, and not just AI for the sake of AI. I appreciate how Dr. Geston said that as well. It's not just AI for the sake of AI. It's how are they thinking about AI in their own context, in their own futures. And that's really important for them to see the importance of it, not just now, not just as a cheating tool, as so many students unfortunately think about these things as, oh, that's just a cheating tool, because they haven't been shown the intentional use cases that students like Will have seen in the classroom, and that's a really important thing. So what we introduced for our freshmen was lessons that first hit on specifically AI. So one of their first lessons they get is how to do the prompting, how it's an iterative process, right? You prompt, you review it, you refine it, it's a cycle. And then we introduce this framework for AI literacy, where we believe that AI literacy is a cycle of using and critically evaluating AI outputs. And I would challenge every leader in this room that this starts with you. The more that our leadership has this kind of AI literacy, where you're using and critically evaluating AI systems, the more you're going to see more Jennifer Montoyas, right? More folks like that are solving problems and having massive impact with leadership from Dr. Ramos, who's thinking about those things at the top level. It's about everyone, not just teachers and students, but everyone using and critically evaluating our AI systems with our criteria. We say use AI and evaluate it with care, right? So every time that you are going to an AI system, you're evaluating it for clarity, right? Does that email that I'm about to send, is the person actually going to understand this? Like, is the messaging understandable for my intended audience? Is it accurate? Should I go and check what it's saying from another source? Is it relevant? Did I prompt something and it came out with something that had nothing to do with what I intended? And then is it ethical, right? Is the outputs biased? And that could be biased from a multiple range of things, from culturally, from geographically. I might put in, hey, give me something about Buckeye and give me something about Goodyear, and get two completely different answers, right? We want our students thinking about this, that every time they go to an AI system, they are to be critical of its outputs. It's not the source of truth, but it can help them in a lot of different ways. We have them explore different problems that they can solve with AI. We have them talking about AI ethical dilemmas both within the school and outside of the school. So how does it affect things like critical thinking? How does it affect our academic integrity in our schools? And then also some of the other pieces that they may not know about going in: copyright issues, environmental issues. These are the things that our students care a lot about. Giving them some space to talk about those things is really important. And then finally, they get to explore, how is AI going to impact my job, right? How is AI going to impact law? How is AI going to impact engineering? I know there's a quote going around that some like 50% of white-collar work is going to be wiped out in 12 months. That's not a great message to hear as a student, right? And I think students are feeling a little bit of anxiousness towards AI because they're reading those headlines. So giving them the space to actually read into, like, what does that mean? Why are they saying that? Really essential as a foundation. So we're building in the specific AI lessons, and then also getting students to use AI to explore their passions, right? This is really our main goal as a district, is that we want to try to have students learn through the things that they're passionate about. And we created an interdisciplinary model of learning called academy-based learning, where students can learn core content through the lens of their career pathway. So if I'm in an English class, I can learn about English through the lens of sports medicine, or I could learn about English through the lens of film and TV. And AI has enabled us to do that, to be able to create experiences that are interdisciplinary and that show connections between things, instead of just delivering abstract concepts to students in a silo. So this is an example of some of the culminating projects that our students came up with. These are freshmen, and they were developing action research questions and developing potential solutions to these questions, utilizing AI to help them come up with a question that relates a problem that they care about with a career pathway. So in this instance, it's how can graphic design use mythology and folklore from different cultures to visually communicate the dangers of deforestation, right? This student is going to be a graphic design student in our district for the next 2-3 years. So we want them thinking about, how can I solve the problems that I care about through my career pathway? And then how can AI be an assistant to that? How can it help me craft a good question? How can it help me outline my research? How can it help me propose a solution to something that I can then go make actionable? Here's another one for our performing arts? How can performing arts programs help reduce student stress and improve overall mental health in schools? Again, these are the things that kids care about. That's what we want them to be working on, and AI is just a part of this. There is no, you can't see AI anywhere on here. It's working in the background with the student to be able to help them to solve their problems. And then finally, a cost of living one, which I think is just like so mature for a 14-year-old to be thinking about. But you also have to understand that this might be a student that experiences some issues with affordability at home. And this may be something that they're internalizing and thinking about, like, how can I break that cycle? How can I solve that problem? That's what we want them working on in our school. So how can we take AI and students, make the learning more relevant, more rigorous, and not just real-world application, but truly in the real world, where they're learning outside of the classroom on things that they truly care about. So really excited about this work, and hopefully that gives a little bit of an idea of some of the things that we've done in the Algra Free Union High School District. So next up is co-winner of the EdTech Specialist of the Year, Roxy Thompson.
All right. My first question is, who is Will's publicist? Because I feel like I really need to get him speaking in my school district. That was amazing. So I worked in a district-level coaching role supporting educators through professional learning as they are trying to make sense of what does AI mean for their instructional practice. And so when I think about teaching and learning in the age of AI, I think about how our thinking as educators has really evolved. So in my district, we've gone from early questions like, what is AI? Should we even be using it? Should we be trying to block it for everyone? To having more intentional conversations about how it can support our instructional work. And early on, a lot of the focus was on efficiency, right? So how can I write these emails more quickly or create these spreadsheets more quickly? And efficiency still is part of the conversation. It has a proper role. But as time went on, our conversations have really shifted to speaking more intentionally about how we can use AI as a thought partner, which seems to be kind of the theme of today. So that's nice. And especially when that's anchored in real instructional challenges. So that shift didn't come about because of the tools themselves. It really happened because we've been supporting our educators in thinking more deeply about their decisions, their students, and their goals. And as a coach, I see this come up most clearly when educators are working through real instructional decisions. So in professional learning or coaching conversations, the focus has really shifted away from the tool itself, and we're starting to ask less questions like, what does this AI tool do? And more questions about, what are we trying to help our students learn or do? Or how can we make this lesson more engaging or meaningful for our students? I was recently working with a group of classroom teachers who were focused on designing lessons for students who have very special, very individualized learning goals. And together, we worked through how to use AI as a thought partner to really think about scaffolds, supports for those students, instructional moves that the teachers wanted to try. And that wasn't because AI gave them the answers. It just helped them to explore some new possibilities that they might not have thought about. So we use strategies like having the AI tool interview us and ask us one question at a time so we could slow down our thinking and think about every single student's individual needs. And what really stood out about that session for me was not the technology. It was really the shift in the thinking that happened for those teachers during that session. So AI helped to create space for conversation, for reflection, and that's where the true instructional value lives. So I think that that experience really helped to reinforce for me why coaching really matters at a systems level, especially when we're talking about teaching and learning with AI. Because the AI tools are going to continue to change, our guidance document will continue to evolve, but our teachers are always going to need space to think and reflect and to make instructional decisions that are responsible, thinking about things like, are we using it in ethical ways? Are we realizing the bias that might be pre-programmed into it? And coaching really creates that space. So it allows our teachers to move beyond that surface level of the tool of just doing the same things they've always done, but only more quickly, and it helps them to grow their confidence. It helps them to strengthen their professional judgment, so they're really evaluating the things that are coming out and not just chasing the newest tool that's just come out. And I think that from a systems lens, that's really important because meaningful change does not happen through one-time trainings or isolated pilots. It really happens through learning that is ongoing and connected to real classroom challenges. So today when I leave, I'm going back to my district and I am leading a session for a group of social studies teachers. We met for the first time a couple of weeks ago. We kind of just started to wrap our head around how to navigate the tool that we're using, some things that we could do with it. And so now we're coming back together. We're going to talk about all the things they've tried in the meantime. We're going to take real lessons that they're planning to use in the next couple of weeks, and we're going to use AI as a thought partner to really think about how can I make this more interactive for my students? How can I make this differentiated so that I'm meeting the needs of all these different students that are in my room? And so again, this is ongoing, right, as opposed to being one-off trainings, and it is anchored to real instructional challenges that they are seeing in their classroom. It's aligned to our district's curriculum. So that's very real for them. So when districts invest in coaching and professional learning systems, they're really setting themselves up to be able to adapt thoughtfully, even as the technology continues to change. And I think that's the real opportunity in this moment right now, is supporting our educators so that they can grow with intention. So when I think about teaching and learning in the age of AI, I don't think about doing brand new things overnight. I think about supporting our educators as really thoughtful designers of learning. And I think that right now, that work is in creating the conditions for them to experiment, to try things, and to really grow. And so I think that only happens when we invest in people and in the systems that support their learning and not just the technology tools themselves. So thank you. And I am introducing Dr. Rachna Mathur.
Thank you very much, Roxy. And I am not an Ed Tech winner of the year, but a wannabe Ed Tech winner who will be sitting with the Ed Tech winners here. So thank you very much, Dr. Lindsay, Dr. Geston. Thank you very much for inviting me here. I'm grateful to be here in front of you all to have these conversations, to shift my thinking and hopefully share some of our lessons. So ASU Preparatory Academy, one of the core missions of this system has been around designing new learning models. And in designing new learning models means right off the bat in 22, when they started talking about ChatGPT, it was in our minds and it was very important, okay, we have to figure out how we're going to embrace this. This is going to be part of the new age and the new learning models. And very early on in the 23, 24 timeframe, we thought, okay, it'll be starting out with our teachers. I think we talked about this, many of our speakers have as well, the giving space for our teachers and the adults in the system that are responsible for learning or for organization or for operations. First, having their mindsets shift and having them on board was very critical. So we started with very small system pilots, with a few schools looking at the tools. I think Drew mentioned this too. It's not, and Roxy said it too. It's not about the tools, but to even engage in this kind of discussion, you need to have something in place, and you need to be safe. I've heard Micah say about privacy, or our other speakers say the importance of our data being protected. So very early on, we said, okay, in order for us to even understand, the adults have to be comfortable. I think Will said this. You got to play with this. At the end of the day, if we don't play, that was probably one of the more important, I think, outcomes of my entire dissertation was play with AI. So I didn't need to do a dissertation for that. But in order to do so, we needed to have the tools in place and safe spaces. So what I'm going to share with you is some of our journey and very grounded examples with our teachers of how we have used and kind of evolved and where we are going next with our learning in AI. So firstly, as we were kind of made it through, we didn't start out with an AI committee. We were in the same space that many of you all were, which was, what do we do? In 22, 23, and 24, I would say in the 23, 24 year, we were piloting different systems. And as a number of leaders, I think Tracy said this, she just grabbed the people off the street. Who's talking about this? It just naturally evolved who were the opinion leaders, the early adopters, innovators, whether they were teachers, network people, students. and sort of grabbing them to help create these kind of pathways. So over time, we evolved into these 4 focus areas: student learning and engagement. We've heard this, I think, from many of our speakers, our academic innovation and pedagogy, ethics, policy and outreach, and then operations and business. I'm going to speak to you mostly about our academic innovation and pedagogy and some of our examples with our teachers. So in order for to even consider what are we going to use, so there was a lot of let's use ChatGPT, let's use Gemini, that still goes on, but we wanted to have a safe space and a safe tool. While we have started with Magic School, this is not the be-all, end-all. It just was a starting point, and I do expect that to evolve. That was a tool through the demos, through the sort of rigorous practice and pilots our teachers chose across our models. And we have teachers in person, digital, and hybrid learning systems. And so as we were able to sort of release this sort of at an enterprise level, we kind of turn it over to our teachers within, I would say, within some loose boundaries, right? Keep your data safe, make sure that you're not putting in student information, and said, okay, let's see what you can do with it. And I'm giving you an example. I'm going to build on Drew's conversation about research questions. In this example, this teacher, he decided, well, he was going to use Magic School, which also has chat creation features, custom GPTs. And one of the struggles he was facing was, how do you even make a research question? So getting to the point, we were like, how do you get our students to create effective research questions? So this was a place that he was struggling. And so he said, well, he teaches at a school that we have, Khan World School, in partnership with Sal Khan. And in order to create those research questions, he created a little chatbot that guides them step by step. It's almost like, how do I create my prompt in the first place? In this case, creating a research question. And so using that, our students were able to step by step think through their process of how to create an effective research question. And then eventually the idea is, maybe you're not entirely dependent for the rest of the semester on this chatbot. You need to get the steps in place in your mind in order to do so. So this gave this teacher an opportunity and the students a comfortable space without judgment. That was really important. Oftentimes, students in high school especially felt that, okay, I should already know this by now, or I have gone through this learning over my previous years. This created a sort of a non-judgment space for them to say, ask basic questions, or sometimes we will say, we say dumb questions, and they're not dumb questions. I think I have asked ChatGPT a few times, explain this to me like I was in 6th grade, and not be judged for it. So this created one of those kind of spaces. Evolving from this entire kind of enterprise-wide exploration of AI, we said, well, I've heard this a few times today, which was, you will have teachers that are naysayers, teachers who are saying, I'm like, gung-ho, a little bit on the extreme side. But by setting up a space where, one, this was a tool and an expectation of everybody using it to some level, that was a very uncomfortable shift in the system. We said, we're shooting in 24-25, 80% of our system is going to try something with AI. Now, that something could have been as basic as writing as an email to all the way to creating your own chatbot, but it was about creating a mindset shift. And that's what this allowed us to do, was having a Magic School. And then the same teacher, I'm going to give you one more very, very grounded example of how his exploration sort of evolved. His name is Bryce Walcott, and if you get these slides, there's a longer article which shares more of the details of his usage of it. In the initial phases, a lot of our teachers, and a lot of teachers use it as a lesson planner. But he has gotten to a point where he says, well, I'm going to evolve this. It's not just a lesson partner, it's a thinking partner. We've heard that a few times. And he went to starting to create his own custom GPTs. Now, not everybody's comfortable with that. So he's working through our system. Many teachers are coming together to learn, what does that mean? So he wanted to bring about this very important lesson that it's not just about the AI or creating this GPT. It was about anchoring whatever he was creating, whatever chatbot, whatever lesson plan, he was anchoring it in his pedagogy. He was anchoring it in the teacher's commitment to ambitious science teaching. It was trying to take the teacher's topics and timelines and tools and collaborating through questions, not just content dumps, which is a lot. Oftentimes when teachers are using our tools, it is a massive amount of content dump, and sometimes they're just grabbing it and using that. But stepping back and saying, this is meant to be grounded in my work, my values, and my system. So this particular teacher's example led to starting with something as simple as how do I create a research question, all the way to now having custom GPTs. Now, as we continue to explore at ASU Prep, there are many, many facets. We follow the great works of many of the people in the state here. We lean on our guidelines. The next sort of evolution, as Roxy spoke to this as well, is now and I think Drew said this too, is what's version 3.0 of schooling? What does this look like, not just in bits and pieces and chunks, like I used it to do this, I wrote an email, but how does it evolve our overall pedagogy? What does emerging technology do to the next generation's learning and careers? And how can we think about this for everybody in the system? Students, teachers, parents, and anyone in the community that's involved in supporting these systems. So I deeply appreciate you all, and I look forward to these conversations and learning more as we go along. Thank you. I'll turn it over to Dr. Lindsay.
Thank you so much for sharing your bright spots with us. I have a million questions, but I'm going to refrain, and I'm going to invite you to ask our panelists a couple of questions for the next handful of minutes.
Hi, I'm Georgina with Stand for Children, and as leaders, I've just been thinking with my own son who has a learning disability, have you all thought about AI-based interventions for students with disabilities? Like I've been trying to explore with him like how to prepare for an exam, create study guides and quizzes and for writing. So I just was wondering if you all thought in your districts any very intentional interventions for students with disabilities.
We have used the platform Conmigo, which has some pretty cool accessibility features for students who don't have English as a first language or have learning differences. So that's been a pretty great tool. Earlier we heard that this idea that everyone can have a tutor in their pocket, and I think that's been kind of Conmigo's calling card. So being able to interact with a student-friendly chatbot that has some of those features built in, and that can scaffold learning for students to level text, to create additional resources. One other one that we've had teachers use is Notebook LM. And Notebook LM can create these kind of interactive study materials, anything from a concept explainer to a video explainer, which I'm really excited about. And you could prompt it like, hey, make this video explainer explain this concept in a way that a third grader who has learning differences would understand. So we've been pushing Notebook LM a lot for tier 2 and 3 interventions for our teachers to use with our students.
Oh, I was going to add to that following similar tools and usage, one of the ways that we have explored how we are going to incorporate AI with students with disabilities is our special education director. She is involved in research studies that kind of bridge computer science, AI, and learning in combination with a special ed teacher and the classroom teacher. So this is a work in progress and is one of the ways that we are thinking about in a very grounded, sort of research-oriented way, how are we going to see the outcomes and data from these kinds of shifts? And that is like a partnership with the university and some of their tools that they've created. So alongside using things like Notebook LLM, which has been great both for teachers and students, and things like Conmigo. So.
And I will say, in full transparency, in my district, we do not currently have a policy, I know, don't listen, Tracy, that allows our students to use AI tools yet, so we're still having conversations and working on that. I will say two things. One, the most emails I've gotten from teachers asking about students using it have been from either teachers who are special education teachers or teachers who have their own children at home who they have found success in using these tools with, who are really advocating for us to open that up a little more for students. And to those teachers, I encourage them to reach out to their board members and to advocate for moving that conversation along. But I will also say, I think it also involves getting our special education teachers feeling comfortable with these tools and the PD session that I mentioned, that actually was with a group of special education teachers. I created a custom chatbot in Copilot, and it was programmed to ask them one question at a time about a specific student, so that they could think through really deliberately how to support their students. And it was programmed to draw on high yield strategies. We had it reference a credible website. And so I think by them going through that process and seeing how helpful it could be when it's grounded in really credible resources, I think that really got them excited about how they could possibly support their students in the future.
Any other questions from the audience?
If I could, just to explore this particular issue a little bit more, I'm curious if you are aware, if you've actually seen IEP teams use or incorporate any AI tools in a student's individual IEP.
Do you mean like as they're writing it?
As they're writing it.
Yeah, we are having a lot of conversations about that because obviously student data is a real concern. And so whenever we lead a professional development session, we always point to our guidance document, which specifically says not to use personally identifiable information about students in it. So we do talk about ways that you can still use it to support the IEP work without putting in that information. I do think that there's going to be I don't know if you guys have come across this. We use Copilot, and more Copilot is Microsoft, and it's just sort of now integrated with like our files and our information. Copilot or Microsoft also claims that it does not use, the education version doesn't use data to program its model. So I think we're gonna get to a weird spot where we're either like, we're trusting this or we're not, because now it can pull directly from our files. But I think because we're in this weird spot where we're sort of like, are we supposed to take their word for it? We're still telling people, please don't put that in there. But I have had special education teachers say like, man, there are some really amazing things we could do if we could actually trust the system and use that information. So it's an ongoing conversation in my district.
And I was also thinking not just in writing the IEP itself, but as a potential intervention for students.
We haven't explored that yet. I think the biggest thing with special education is the privacy issue, and so I think there's been probably the most reluctance to jump in, but it also is maybe where you could have the most gains, and so that's something that we want to continue to explore. We were even talking in-house about potentially building something internally so that it's not hosted somewhere else, but still haven't quite figured out what that looks like.
Yeah, the other thing I'll say is I know there are, Stanford has, oh my gosh, what is it called? The AI Hub. And I know there's been a couple of reports that have come out, and one of them had to do with there's a lot of gains they're seeing when students are using the tools, but then when they take them away, they're not necessarily seeing them be able to transfer what they learned and be successful without the tools. So I think that's going to be a conversation for all of our students, obviously, but in particular, what we don't want to do is take our any special population of students, get them using a tool that then they are dependent on and they cannot transfer that learning. So I think that'll be part of the conversation.
Over here. So I know that there's a lot of turmoil in Peoria as a parent in Peoria, but looking at the positive sides, you're surrounded by philanthropists, nonprofits, government sector. What can we do to help to support, to get buy-in from the community so that this can be something useful for the student population and teachers alike?
On the record, I know of no turmoil happening in Peoria Unified School District. What I will say, because I think this is a safe thing to say, is the board has a lot of power in Peoria Unified, and I don't think that's unique in Arizona districts. And so I think that in order to move forward with students, at least be able to explore students using AI tools is going to require some sort of board policy being passed. And I know there are a lot of things that are priorities right now. I think a lot of times people feel like, or districts feel like they're just responding to the fire that's going. I feel like this is a fire. I don't think that is the feeling of the general population of Peoria board members or communities. So I think it needs to become something that someone who can make a decision advocates for. And that's really difficult, and I get that. It's really difficult because there are so many other things competing for that attention. But I welcome all positive advocating on behalf of putting a policy in place that just makes sure that our students start to get that support so they can explore these tools.
I think to transition, one thing that I would say is that just being here today and learning about what the current state is in AI in education, what the bright spots are, we can learn from these forgers what has worked already. And then we can help spread those messages to other schools and other communities. And so I think being here and really understanding what the landscape looks like and what it could look like through the eyes of teachers, professional developers, students, and leaders, that is the first step. One thing that I do want to remind everybody is that every speaker here today, first of all, I want to tell you all that I have the best job in the world. And one of the reasons, the reason, is because I get to go out and talk to so many people and find out what they're doing. So like this panel times every day of my life is basically my job, right? And it's amazing. And these panelists here today were selected because they are the bright spots in Arizona. These are practices that are effective, that we're seeing really good results, and they're moving these forward in the ways that they can, with or without board support, with or without policy, with or without expectations from an administrator about the use of AI. They're moving forward in the ways that they can. But I'll also remind you before our next speaker that because these are bright spots, by definition, that means this is not what's happening all over Arizona. These are the exceptions and not the rules. And we think that the only way to create more, we heard Paul talk about it earlier this morning, that what we don't want to have happen is for the technology to create even more gaps between the haves and the have-nots. And the only way that we can ensure that that happens is by learning from the innovators and from the forgers, and then spreading those messages and spreading those best practices. But we also have to keep in mind some of the challenges that different environments, different districts, and different communities have in creating these realities. And so our next speaker is going to be speaking about the very unique challenges and perspective of our rural communities here in Arizona. So I would like to welcome one of our wisest and most veteran superintendents in the state of Arizona.
That means I'm old.
One of our most beloved superintendents, Dr. Ravi Korprich.
Together, and especially the Helios Foundation, thank you for including us as rural school systems, because sometimes we feel like we're on the peripheral and we don't always fit in with everything that's happening, but these organizations have done a wonderful job of including rural school districts, and we do appreciate it. How many of you guys grew up in a rural school or a rural community? Few of you, very good. So you understand that when we want to go 10 miles, we want to take 10 minutes, not 30 minutes. That's the difference between rural and non-rural, is we get places quicker. Right? So we enjoy the opportunity to be, we love being in rural, but then we make a choice to be in that rural setting. And there's many advantages, but there's also some disadvantages to that as well. So think about it. Think about 5 years ago. And as a superintendent, this kind of gives me PTSD thinking about this time 5 years ago when we got the call that we weren't going to open schools back up. and how are we going to deliver instruction in the homes, and what are we going to do? Our kids didn't have computers in the home. We were starting to explore this Google Classroom thing. That was 5 years ago. Think about where we're at now. What are we talking about today? And how have we elevated from the pandemic to the place that we're at now? All of our kids have a computer at home and at school now. They didn't have that prior to the 2020. Now we're talking about getting access into the home and being able to learn 24/7, 365. So thank you for the opportunity for us to have this conversation this morning. So some opportunities for AI in rural education. Equal access and equal opportunity. We have to bridge this gap for high quality resources. And that's why I'm so appreciative that we have these opportunities to sit at the table and have these discussions and learn. We were also part of the RAISE project, which was very enlightening for us. It's perfect timing for the Holbrook Unified School District because we started talking about it, but we didn't really know how to navigate it. And so we were able to collaborate with school districts out of Texas, and I thought that was a very unique perspective to see what's happening in other school systems around the country. And so we collaborated with different school districts in Texas, and we learned about this SIBME program. And SIBME program, there was a question earlier about how can we use AI to help teachers advance. And a SIBME program is an AI tool that allows us to give feedback to the teacher about all the things that we ask teachers to do in the classroom. And so we started implementing that right away after the RAISE project. We started doing some more action research, as Dr. Ramos had talked about. There's so many things that we can do to create that equal access and equal opportunities for all of our kids. And I'm going to show you a little bit, or talk to you a little bit about equal access in just a little bit that I think will be a unique perspective on what rural school districts are dealing with, specifically in our district. Individualized learning. Man, we talked about special education already. We've talked about ELL students and how AI can help with listening and speaking and all the ELP standards that we place upon a teacher to do all the work. Now we can bring in all of those networks around really the large language model to come and give us ideas on how we can best meet the needs of our individual students. And I guess it was summarized best to me as one of our leading AI teachers his daughter was struggling in math. And so listening to the teacher teach math, and we've all been there, right? The way that a teacher teaches math may not be the way mom and dad teach math. It may not be the way the neighbors teach math. It may not be the way that I learn math. But using ChatGPT with all of her assignments, not cheating, as we've talked about many times this morning, but learning a different methodology to getting the answer, she's increased her individualized learning just by using that AI tool. And I think that's a benefit of having AI in rural systems and throughout systems of education, period, that allow us to differentiate instruction, allow us to individualize learning, and I think that's a key from now into the future. College and career readiness. I mean, look what Will gave us this morning. That was amazing. Just to know that kids going into their future, whether that's a college pathway or a career pathway, they're going to have to use these tools. And rural kids need these tools just like Will needs these tools. We have to have equal access across the board. And then creating new opportunities, just opening doors to exploration. We have a graduate from Holbrook High School that works for NASA and helped put the rover on Mars. He created some opportunities on his own, went to Stanford, but now I think we can create more of the Aaron Yazzies that come from these environments because he had advantages. We call it